Absolutely. This is David's is from the project for asserting yourself effectively, interpersonal communication in the advanced communication series. And his speech is about 10 to 14 minutes. There's 3 parts to it. And his objectives are: enjoy mental and physical benefits of being assertive, employ 4-step method for addressing a problem and asking for help, and thirdly, overcome resistance to my request. Thank you.
Thank you, Shabnam. I appreciate that. With that said, David's speech is called "It's Not About You." The ocean is a sanctuary until a lifeguard comes along and disrupts that peaceful, easy feeling. Is there discrimination on the ocean? David?
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. As Shabnam said, this is a 3-part speech. The first part will be a 4 to 5 minute presentation. Then I will have a 4 to 5 minute role playing with lifeguard Scott. And then I will have a 2 to 4 minute discussion. I'm going to start the timer right now. There's a fine line between being assertive and being aggressive. Let me say that again. There's a fine line between being assertive and being aggressive. I want to talk to you about assertiveness and the importance of it. But first, let me give you a definition of the word assertive. It's showing a confident and forceful personality. And it can be characterized by bold or confident behavior. Some words to describe assertiveness is aggressive, ambitious, fierce, go-getter, high pressure, in your face, pushy, self-asserting, self-assertive. Not too long ago, I found myself in a situation where I wasn't nearly as assertive as I could have or should have been. And I ended up really angry and unhappy because of how I responded or did not respond. If I had asserted myself properly, the way I know how to, and spoken up for myself when I should have, I would not have had these feelings of anger and even a little bit of resentment. It was really bottling up inside of me. And generally, I consider myself a pretty assertive person, but there's certain situations in which I let things slide. And by not sticking up for myself, ultimately, it experienced a wide range of negative emotions. And I like to see myself as a positive person. And it became clear to me in that moment that I needed to take a closer look at being assertive and determine how could I assert myself positively without becoming aggressive. You see, ignoring problems or trying to fix them yourself or even losing your temper, they're all typical responses to stressful situations. Anger and resentment, they tend to build up over time. And repressed anger can lead sometimes to physical, emotional, and even mental problems. On the other hand, losing your temper really makes things like shouting and calling people names defensive. It never works. So asserting yourself effectively is probably one of the most challenging communication skills. And if you don't have the right attitude and verbal skills, you'll do more harm than good. Now, the first step in asserting yourself effectively is to realize the problem you're experiencing is your own. Own it. Take that feeling, and instead of blaming or judging or attacking the other person, putting that person on the defensive, how about expressing your own concerns and feelings and then asking for the other person's help? Now, I want to give you a 4-step method for addressing a problem. Number 1, State the problem. Be crystal clear on what the problem is. Describe what the problem or situation is, and what the behavior is that's bothering you. Number 2, tell the person how you're feeling. Use I statements, not you statements, I statements. And explain to the person how what they said is affecting you and making you feel. Number 3, come up with a solution. Be really clear and specify what that solution is. Let them know what you would like to be done. And number 4 is describe the consequences. Mention the positive consequences that will happen if the person that you're trying to assert yourself with fulfills your request. So there's 4 tips here. As you state the problem, tell your feelings, specify a solution, describe the consequences. Speak up immediately, number 1. Be direct, number 2. And be pleasant, number 3. And above all else, take a deep breath and be calm. Now, I'd like to demonstrate my assertiveness with lifeguard Scott. This is a real scenario that happened. And it's happened a few times, and it just happened the other day, so the timing could not be any better. Let me set the stage. In most places in California, there's these boundaries that keep the surfers and the stand-up paddle boarders and the bodyboarders separate from each other. Some places call it blackball, but in Dana Point, there's a place called Doheny. Now, there's 200 yards of waves that everybody from surfers and bodyboarders have access to. And then there's a little sliver right in front of this jetty called the Hammer that the stand-up paddle boarders are sequestered to or quarantined to. And if you cross over that line, the lifeguard will get on his loudspeaker and say, "Stand-up paddleboarders, get out of the surfer zone. Move now. Stop playing games with us." So I heard that over and over again. And lifeguard Scott, thank you for your service protecting our beaches here in Laguna Beach in Orange County. I'm grateful for what it is that you bring to us. But first and foremost, there's a problem that I want to state with what's happening here. There's this entire stretch of water that you allow the surfers, and I know the state has put laws in place that keep the stand-up paddleboarders from being able to paddle in these areas, but it's a problem because those of us that have grown up surfing at this location are responsible enough to know that we share the waves with others. And I understand that there are concerns, lifeguard Scott, that people will get hurt and injured. And that's a problem. Would you agree with that, lifeguard Scott, that that's a problem, that people will get injured if...
The problem you have is you just are not on a board that's responsive enough. You can't maneuver quickly enough to get out of the way of the surfers. If you're jockeying for position on the wave, there's just no way you can move fast enough to get out of the way of the surfer. And
Scott, I agree with you 100%.
And so we're doing this for your own benefit.
Yes,
so
I thank you for that. Thank you for that, lifeguard Scott. And for those people that are starting out stand-up paddleboarding, that is the case. But for the responsible, experienced people like me, who've spent more time on a stand-up paddleboard than on land, I have the ability to be able to control my board and not create damage or harm to the people that are riding the waves. So I understand that. And I understand that you're trying to protect others. And at the same time, when I'm going out stand-up paddleboarding, I'm making sure I'm not controlling the environment by trying to run people over. As you've seen in your lifeguard tower, many people do that. So let me...
It's not always a question of of your ability. We don't know what your ability is, and you run the risk of not being. Many people on stand-up paddleboarding, they don't have the experience you do, and we don't know that
Exactly.
back on the beach, looking through some binoculars to see how you're doing, and we're
Exactly,
trying to
Scott.
protect you from yourself.
And I'm so grateful that you're doing a great job of protecting the beach and watching over the beach. And Scott, you're a waterman. You grew up on the ocean. Otherwise, you would not be a lifeguard. And I know I've seen you out in the water surfing and stand-up paddle boarding before. So I want to appeal to you and let you know that you're wise enough to be able to determine someone who has experience just by the way that you see them riding waves. And it makes me feel, when you call me out on the loudspeaker for everyone on the beach to hear that I'm playing games with you, that makes me feel very, very angry. But I understand you're doing your job. So here's a solution. A solution would be this, lifeguard Scott. What if, as a lifeguard, you would look at the beach, and if a stand-up paddleboarder is experienced, you would give them the opportunity to have fun like everyone else and not discriminate against us just because there are others inexperienced stand-up paddleboarders that are causing the problems.
The problem that I run into is then how do I differentiate for the other, for say the newbies who are on the beach? They're there on the stand-up paddleboard, they're just getting along, and if they see you go on the side by side with the surfers, you may give way to them and let them ride the wave, but they don't know any better, and so they see you on that stand-up paddleboard, and they say, well, if it's okay for him, I can do that too, and they get out there, and their board takes up the space of 2 or 3 riders on that one wave because they have such a big board, and they're not able to maneuver quickly, and so half the time I either wind up rescuing someone or breaking up a fight because they sit there and someone's got their nice board, and they run into each other, things get broken up, and then not only am I rescuing somebody, but now I'm breaking up a fight between a surfer and a stand-up paddleboarder, and it's difficult to make that call. And so by your example of saying that I can go anywhere I want because I'm more experienced, it would be like saying, well, I can drive down the freeway at 90 or 100 miles an hour because I've got a good car and I have the fast reflexes, but it doesn't make it okay for you to do that. And then everyone else would be out driving down the freeway just as fast.
Great point. Great example, lifeguard Scott. Let me say this in a different way. What if, as ocean men, women, that we take the responsibility off of your hands, and when we're in the water, when we see someone, when next time I see someone who is inexperienced and is unable to control his board, that leave it up to me and the fellow stand-up paddle boarders to be able to educate this person and say, this is not the place for you, therefore go on the other side of the jetty for the beginners. And instead of putting all the burden on the lifeguards, what about shifting the responsibility to those people that are in the water, that have the experience, that will be able to provide a win-win situation for everyone? And the consequences would be that it's not a dictatorship, which sometimes it can feel like, where we're putting all the responsibility on the lifeguards, and instead let us police each other, take responsibility for each other, so that therefore you would not have to come and intervene.
Well, we have tried that in the past, and what we find is so especially some of the younger surfers are not very tolerant of the stand-up paddle boarders, and will do things to cut them off, to get in their way, and to kind of force them out of the area. So it's easier on everyone to make strong dividing lines where this is the surfing zone.
I agree. Scott, the old ways are no longer the new ways. We're living in a different time now, that we have an opportunity for surfers, stand-up paddleboarders, boogie boarders to come together and be unified in our love for the ocean. Whether you're older, younger, I invite you to come out next time you're on your guard tower, sit with me as I meet with these other surfers, stand-up paddleboarders, and show you how this can be done. But I thank you, lifeguard Scott, for your service and keeping the ocean safe. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you,
Ooh,
David.
good
Thank
time.